Okay, this is Jason. I wanted to send a thank you to everybody on my prayer list, everybody who prayed for me uh, when I first asked for it back many months ago. Wanted to kind of give you an update, I guess tell you what happened and give you an update. The quick version, if you want to cut the video now, I'm doing better. Your prayers have been effective, and I thank you for joining me in that effort. And if you want to hear more detail, here it is. I've been suffering with a mental disorder. They don't call it mental illness. I'm not sure maybe that's a nicer word, disorder, called obsessive compulsive disorder and panic disorder. And I kind of thought I knew what those words meant before, but I didn't. So I made another video before, but it was like 40 minutes long, and I couldn't upload it. I couldn't do that to you guys. So I'm trying to time myself to keep it short. I'm not good at keeping things short when I'm talking about my stuff, but I'm gonna try. Anyway, OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. For some people, they have the idea that their hands have germs on them, or something's infected or contaminated, probably a better word. So they feel like they have to wash constantly or clean things constantly. It's not the funny, he's quirky and likes to straighten things and, likes things a certain way. That's a different thing. The obsessive compulsive disorder is a thing that is not funny, and you don't want, I want desperately to get rid of it. It's a prison of the mind, and that's where I've been for many months. What I've learned, I'm not going to tell you the whole story. That's what I did last time, and I ran out of time. So I'm going to kind of hit the highlights, like a sports center version of my story. I have a faulty wiring in my brain. I guess it must have been triggered by something. Stress, this time in my life, who knows? Anyway, I found myself there. Literally one day, I was just there, and I had this panic attack. I didn't know what it was. Ended up going through emergency room, regular doctor, various kinds of help, counselors, psychiatrists, and eventually I learned enough stuff on my own from a couple of books, and just in case you should ever know anybody who needs that help, I'm going to point you to both of those books that were a big help to me. Anyway, the OCD, my OCD, I'm going to use some of the jargon, I guess. It has a theme, which is it's not a contamination theme. It is a religious theme. And what they say is, like I was saying, I have a faulty wiring in my brain that where most people will get a thought, and a crazy thought, and they'll be able to just kind of let it go. They shoo it away. For some reason, my brain is not able to do that. And I guess it's a medically proven fact. It's a medical condition of the brain that won't allow you to shift gears, they say. So I had this kind of free-floating anxiety that would latch on to different things, I'll give you an example. Wendy, this is not the religious part, but this is just kind of obsessive compulsive disorder, what it looks like. Wendy and the kids are driving somewhere. Let's say they come to meet me, and I know there's some construction going on, or there's a DPS situation, like a hostage thing, because we get these emails at the state. They come to meet me, and I suddenly realize that I forgot to tell her to avoid that area, or she's driving back into it. And I feel my anxiety latches on to the idea that something bad's going to happen. And brothers and sisters, when I tell you this, as God as my witness, to describe it to you as a feeling that something bad is going to happen, doesn't even begin to cover what it feels like. I'm not sure I can describe it to you. I've seen panic attacks on TV and stuff and movies, but I've never experienced anything like it. I mean, when I get one of these thoughts like I just described, and I get the feeling is like it's happening. It's as real as anything you can imagine. Actually, you can't imagine it as real as it feels at the time. So I hope you never have to know. I pray that you never have to know. And you're just gonna have to take my word for it that it's horrible. And I would come home at night and just be, because I still had to work, I'd come home and just crumble in the bed like the kids are out here in the living room and everybody's watching TV, and I just go straight to the bedroom and just cry and just lay on the bed and cry. It was just more than I could do for many months. And I had no idea what it is. Everything I'm going to tell you in this and describe to you is stuff that I've learned since January of this year. Mostly on my own, because the counselors and the therapists and stuff, I don't know. They just weren't able to help me. They seemed to latch on to something that they thought they could fix, but I was like, that's not it, Anyway, they seem to want to fix everything about me. I'm like, number one, I'm already in a program for that. Number two, we don't have time for all that. Let's just deal with the thing that's in front of me. Anyway, religious OCD. It is the same type of thing where there's an anxiety that floats, and a thought comes in, and the thought is something like, there's a homeless lady who comes up to me, and what she says is, "Do you have $1 I can have?" Or, "Can you give me $1?" Something like that. Let's go with the first one. Do you have $1 I can have? So the question has two parts, right? Do you have $1 that I can have? Well, let's say I say no, and she walks away. And then I get the thought that I lied. I did have $1. She asked me, "Do you have $1 I can have?" I said no. But I get the thought that I lied, Lying is the 9th commandment. And, you just lied and you pissed God off. And, in addition to everything else that you've done, you can never be right with God, This is not a theology lesson. I'm just telling you the thought is like, the OCD thought is like an enemy in your mind that is on autopilot. And what happens is this, right? The thought comes in, you lied, right? So maybe I argue with it. No, I didn't lie. This is what she asked me, kind of what I was just saying. Or this is, Christ's gifts and call are irrevocable. God's gifts and calls are irrevocable. Anything, any kind of argument, it's an unwelcome house guest in my head. And if I argue with it, if I try to reason with it, if I try to avoid it, try to get away from it, if I put any energy toward it at all, it just gets stronger, and like you can argue with it at first, and then it'll come back with something else, and it just never gets tired. It never gets tired. So anyway, I'm almost 10 minutes already. So that's what I've been dealing with, basically. And from January, February, March, 3 months, I'm having this argument every 5 minutes, all day long. And it just wore me out. It just wore me out. And at some point in the beginning, I decided to fight it, because it's like, I know these things are not true. And I went through all kinds of stuff, man. I thought I was going crazy. I thought I was losing my mind. I thought I, wouldn't be able to work, and, I had a demon, just all kinds of craziness, and, believing that something better would happen, It's like I'm despairing of life, but it just can't be. I mean, it's got to be some way to come back from this. Anyway, so it's been hard. I've been suffering with it. I've still had to go on. Still had to go to work. Still had to try to be a dad, which I've, I don't know. That's life. You're never 100% at anything, I think I'm a good 75% all the time. Anyway, I learned something about it. All the things about the brain chemistry, and that if you acknowledge that the thought is not your thought, but it's an OCD thing that's stuck in a groove there, then you can, one of the therapy strategies is to allow it to sit and go on. I can tell you that's really uncomfortable. But it's been almost 6 months. I've had a lot of practice at this. So I'm getting fairly good at it. Another strategy is to, okay, you lied. This is me separating myself from the OCD. It's not me, my thought, it's the OCD. And then sort of putting it in that box, saying, all right, I'm going to disarm my enemy. If my enemy's saying you lied and God's mad at you and you're going to go to hell, then I'm going to take that weapon away. And I'm going to go ahead and say that, okay, yeah, you're right. God is mad at me. He's going to put me in the deepest pits of hell because I am a liar. And there's just no recovery. Christ is not enough to cover that sin. This is not what I believe is true, but this is how you battle. You have to battle this enemy that's unreasonable with an unreasonable argument. You have to fight it the same way, So the idea is you say that, okay, there's nothing I can do, and I guess I might as well load this dishwasher. I might as well, get on to work or whatever, and try to engage in another activity. So it's not just that you are doing something else to distract. You're letting the feeling sit there, and that thought, as horrible as it is, you're letting that thought just be there, and trying not to, they say, attend to it in any way. And I kind of got that approach. I've lost it now. From this book called Brain Lock, Brain Lock. Work this Kindle. Jeffrey Schwartz, that's his name. I was trying to think of the author's name. Brain Lock by Jeffrey Schwartz. He talks about the 4-step strategy, and it's got a lot of good information for OCD. My type of OCD, in addition to being the religious OCD, it's mostly around religious themes, God and what he thinks, and stuff like that. Is also what is called pure obsessional. Like in his book Brain Lock, he says if you wash your hands, if you're worried everything is contaminated, walk away from the sink and resist the compulsion to wash your hands for 15 minutes. 15 minutes, the feeling should abate, and you should be able to go on. Not should, but after time, with practice, you'll be able to go on. But for me, it's all in my head. I can't get away from it. So that's the idea, but I figured out how to do the idea from a different book. I can figure out how to work my Kindle. I thought this was going to work. All right, I got it. That's called Strivings Within the OCD Christian by Mitzi Van Cleve. It's a Kindle book. It cost me $5. It's the best $5 I ever spent. I mean, if that book had cost $500,000, it's still been worth it. In there, she's a person who suffers from religious OCD. If you have any interest in what I am not able to explain, check that book out, because it describes it perfectly. But so it was good, hey, I'm not alone in this. But she also taught me in her book how to do the therapy that's called exposure and response prevention therapy. And that's kind of what I just described, where you let the feeling sit, you expose yourself to the feeling, and then you prevent your response in any kind of way to the feeling. And what happens is over time, it subsides, a lot of time. I mean, longer than I would have thought, Today, compared to the middle of January and today, it's 1,000,000 times better. 1,000,000 times better. I also, to be transparent, I take a little bit of medication for it. It's called a serotonin reuptake inhibitor. Serotonin is, for this purpose, it's something that helps you feel better, I guess. Anyway, the medicine I'm on I'm still on a fairly medium dose of it. But in the beginning, I was desperate, I was just desperate, and I got on this medicine, and I had told the guy, I didn't really want to be on medicine. I still don't want to be on medicine, but if I'd known it was going to take me 6 months and, not be able to find anybody who could really tell me what it was, I wouldn't have been so anxious not to be on it. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think everybody has to you have to run the race that's set before you. And believe me when I say I guess it's good that you don't know what kind of things are set before you. So that's what's been going on. That's where I'm at. My timer says I'm at 20 minutes, so I'm going to stop there. I'm going to come back and say just a few more things on a second video. You know what? Let's just do it now. Let's keep it short, Jace. All right. So here's the thing. I thought for the longest time that God had left me, you know. I was struggling. Everything was just a struggle, you know. And I mean, even before OCD, you know. In my marriage as a dad on the job, I play the bass, you know, that's kind of what I do to blow off steam, but I've been hurt for the last year. I'm probably going to talk about that somewhere else, but everything was just kind of stripped away, you know. And even though that was the case, God seemed to give me, he seemed to give me a gift of a feeling of, not a feeling, he gave me a gift of some kind. He gave me a gift that other people could see. And then, like, as soon as I noticed that I had the gift, you know, my whole thing just sank, you know. And it was almost like it's almost like this. If I can speak for him, I think in the spirit this is what happened. He said, I want to give you this. This is for you. This is what I have for you. But I'm going to show it to you to kind of point you in the right direction. And then I'm going to take it away and put you through some really challenging stuff, you know, because I need you to be the kind of person who can have what I want to give you. And, oh man, you know, I remember praying, like right before this happened, you know, I said a prayer that was something like, Lord, I'm ready to do what you have for me. I'm ready to move on into it. And I think he said, okay, all right, let's go, you know. But that first, like, watch that first step, you know. It's a fight for my sanity that I thought I was going to lose for a long time. Anyway, but God, you know, you will keep in perfect peace him whose mind is steadfast because he trusts in you. I never trusted God so much in my life than I do right now. My power is made perfect in weakness. I've never been weaker than I am right now. You know, my failings, my sin, my lack of whatever it is that I need to do, whatever I'm doing has been shown to me, you know, in such a stark way. I mean, when Jesus said, apart from me, you can do nothing. I mean, really, you can do nothing. Even the things you think you're doing are his grace. And I thank him for that. I thank him for that, for the knowledge that I'm not able to do anything without him. And that's the weird thing, is as tough as it's been, it's also been a huge blessing, you know. And I guess that's the kingdom of God at work, you know, the yeast in the bread, that every hard thing that has come to me, things that I wish had never come to me, you know, the division in my marriage, the being a Christian married to an atheist, you know, having a kid with diabetes, you know, Dylan coming out as gay, you know, the, the problems with my hands, the kind, the just trying to make a living. I know everybody's kind of got that going on now, but what making a living has meant in the last 3 or 4 years, I lost my train of thought. These things have been tough. That's right. But they have all worked in me to show me something about myself that I'm sure that I needed to see. I needed to know those things. I needed to know, like I would have said in my heart of hearts, deep down, outside of the earshot of anybody that knows me, I would say, yeah, I have my limits. No, man, you don't have your limits. I mean, that doesn't even begin to cover it. That is too much of you, where John said, I must decrease so he can increase. Even saying I have my limits, that is too much of you. I don't know. I believe the word more than I ever have, more deeply than I ever have. I love God. I have a space to love God more than I ever have. I thank him for what he's been able to bring out of this, and he's got his work cut out for him, because I'm such a small creature that I forget things almost as soon as I learn them. But by his grace, I'll be able to keep on. So anyway, I'm doing better. I thank you for your prayers. If you feel, I know I asked for a month and I asked for another month, and so that if you think of it, pray for me. But I release you from my prayer list, and I hope that hearing my story is a blessing to someone. This OCD thing, if you know somebody who's going through it, or I should say if there's someone in your circle who's going through it, you probably don't know it, because it makes you feel alone, and especially if you don't know what it is, you definitely are not going to be telling anybody about it. But I have, through the books teach the therapy, through some medication, through daily exercise, through getting regular sleep, through, the medium doses of the medication, through belief that I can get better, through a kind of, I'm gonna fight this bully, I'm not gonna go down like that. Through that kind of thing, through that kind of attitude, has been the way that I've gotten through it. There's another book I'm reminded. It's called "Can Christianity Cure OCD?" And it talks about. I haven't read it yet, but I've been on the guy's website. I heard of it. It's called, or it's about 3 people in history. 2 of them, the third one I can't remember, but one of them is John Bunyan, who wrote Pilgrim's Progress, and Grace Abounding to the Chief of Sinners, which I did read, and Martin Luther. And the author talks about how these people, before OCD was a thing that had a name, went through this, and I think his point is that, in a nutshell, if you let God be responsible for everything, the answer is to trust God more, even when your world is turning upside down. And I know that's not the first time you guys have heard something like that, but there's many varieties of ways to fill up in our body the afflictions that are still lacking, I guess. There's an infinite variety of ways that can happen. And hopefully, you know, those things are fun, but hopefully survivors and people who come through it and people who keep faith through those things can go on and teach others, can comfort others with the comfort they've received. And that's what I hope to do. And let God have the glory. Thank you, and bless you all in Christ.